What do I do? Oh, shit. I suppose what we in the industry would call the phenomenon. Yes, I sort of work with the phenomenon. Yeah, what industry? Oh, shit, how do I describe it, bro? Broadly speaking, like UFOs, yeah, aliens, yeah, cryptid creatures. Yeah, so like Bigfoot would be one. Yeah, you know Bigfoot. The dog, no, oh, okay. The moth, have you heard of the moth? You haven't heard of the moth? Oh, far out, no. So yeah, there's everything out there. Aliens, ghosts, near-death experience, psychic stuff. So yeah, that's sort of broadly my line of work, bro. But enough about me. What do you do? Yeah. Okay. Hey, sorry, I overheard you earlier. Was that what you were telling her over there? Yeah, you were telling her about your, because I was wondering about her. Well, I was explaining my job as I was to you just now, and obviously you're interested. It's interesting stuff. It's an interesting industry, aliens and all that. But she, I don't know, she just kind of like left halfway through. Yeah, she was a bit weird, eh? Yes, a bit rude as well. So yeah, no, I'm not the weirdo. I'm not the weird one. No, she's weird. That's what I have to do, guys. That's what I have to do at parties. It's so awkward, and that's the sacrifice that I make for you and your entertainment. And I just wanted to, I don't know, do a little skit to convey just how awkward that was. Did you feel the awkwardness? Yeah. Well, imagine what I have to go through, and it's all your fault. Nah, who am I kidding? I mean, I'm not forced to, am I? I genuinely do find UFOs and aliens interesting, and no one pressured me, no one forced me to start a supernatural podcast. And yeah, who am I kidding? I don't get invited to parties. No, I'm joking. I allow myself one ramble. I think that's a good limit. That's a start, isn't it? One bit of silliness, one ramble in the intro that's not related to the podcast. And if you're new, by the way, what was all that? Welcome. My name's Steve. I'm the host of this show, the Cosmic Banter podcast, and I think it is welcome to a few of you. Episode 16, The Riddle of the Roidvale UFOs. If you haven't heard it, amazing story. Untold story about UFOs over a primary school in 1973 in Christchurch, New Zealand, and that episode brought in, between Spotify and YouTube, I think an additional 10 to 15 subscribers. And this isn't a joke. This part isn't a joke. It might not sound like a lot, but for me, it's huge. It's the biggest jump from any episode. So I'm stoked. It's all momentum, and I appreciate every single one of you. So hopefully a few of that extra 10 to 15 have stayed and continuing to listen to these. They may have turned off after that 3-minute intro skit and just, yeah, probably completely freaked them out. But episode, we're interviewing a guest who's already been on, a prior guest to the Cosmic Banter podcast. You'll recall, hopefully, episode 14, titled The Telepathic Trio. We spoke with Lesley. That episode, if you haven't heard it, again, highly recommend that you go back and listen to that. Was kind of a story about her near-death experience, is probably the best way of describing it. And yeah, again, the best way to describe it, essentially her encounter with her guardian angels. So it was a beautiful story. Tonight's episode, we continued on our Zoom recording, and she shared this story you're about to hear. But it's completely different, so it deserved its own episode. And yeah, I guess it's less beautiful, as you can probably tell from the title. Now, another interesting thing, Lesley, who's already been on episode 14, this is now episode 18, Wow, 18. The Cosmic Banter podcast is growing up. It's legal. We could have actually already had sex 2 years ago, and it could have got a beer at a pub in Germany, but in New Zealand it is now able to drink. So maybe the next episode we'll do an intro from a pub to celebrate. No, that's weird. Okay, what was I saying? See, this is the problem. So this is episode 18. We may do, just very quickly, I might sneak in an episode 18.5. No, I'll make it 19. I'll make it 19. With Lesley again, because this episode and episode 14 were recorded actually late last year, around, I think, November 2024. And I've kept in touch with Lesley since. And recently, like I'm talking in the last week, I spoke with her and I said, how are you and how's your mum? Her mum features both in this story and in the last one. And I cheekily asked, any other supernatural stories to share? Not expecting her to answer actually yes, but she did. And I'm talking in like the last fortnight, I believe. She's had an incredible UFO sighting. Now, I'm not going to get into it all because I don't know the full story and I don't want to spoil it, because she said she'd be happy to do an interview, but that it's quite a short story. But I reckon from what she's described, this is not just your normal sighting of lights in the sky and, we worked out it wasn't this, it wasn't that, so therefore it was unidentified. No, I'm talking a close contact event. So, yeah, hopefully by the time this is uploaded, there will also be an episode 18.5 or episode 19, and I'm really excited to hear that story. I was about to call her tonight to do that, so it's funny timing that I'm publishing this one. So, without further ado, if you are new, welcome. Please subscribe, share, like the videos. Sharing and word of mouth, especially at this nascent stage of my podcast journey, really, really helps. It helps more than you know. So, yeah, share with friends or people online who you know that are interested in the subject. And if you are able to, if you're feeling extra generous, as this is a new show and we working on it, there are 2 donation links in the description. So donations aren't expected, but I guess graciously, whatever, just give me money, please. So one is a cryptocurrency donations link, and that is if you want to make a private donation. I don't even get to see your wallet address, so it is truly private. Otherwise, standard credit and debit card options as well. Both links in the description on YouTube and Spotify. So, without further ado, is that all yes, that's all the housekeeping. Okay. This is the Cosmic Banter podcast. I am your host, Steve. Tonight's episode is Season 1, Episode 18, and the title is The Duende, or otherwise known as a Goblin, who stole my cat. As ever, guys, remain curious, keep your eyes to the skies, and when the phenomenon decides to reach you, I hope that you decide to reach out to Cosmic Banter. Alright, guys, enjoy. Peace! Okay, hey, welcome back, Lesley. Now we spoke earlier on a previous episode. Our listeners may recall your incident with a horrific car crash and your experience, your encounter with these for lack of a better term, angels. And yeah, and that was a really fascinating story. If I'd had that experience, and that's the only so-called supernatural experience I'd had in my whole life, I'd be perfectly happy with that. But you have another story, don't you?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, we'd call it a story. What experiences with a
Experience
certain being? Yeah.
with a certain being. Yes, okay. You've piqued my interest. My ears are perked, and I think the listeners are as well. Um, let's crack into it. It involves your mother, doesn't it?
Yes, yeah. It's
Yes.
yeah.
Do you want to give some background? Yeah.
Okay. So my mother, I don't know if I mentioned, but she was born and raised in the Philippines. Um, and so she remembers from childhood, um, all of a sudden one day she had a what she called a leprechaun friend. And even as I've grown up, actually, it's not till like this year that I actually told her what I thought it was. She's always called him her leprechaun friend. And I think she said she was about 5 or 6 when he came along. Um, from what I've gathered, he is actually a duende. That's what they call them in the Philippines.
A duende.
Duende, yeah, duende, duende. I'm not sure how they pronounce it, but yeah.
Okay. I want to come back to that because that's interesting. I've heard that name before. Yes, so carry on. So, okay. So she saw a duende when she was about
Oh,
five years
yeah,
old.
5 or 6. She used to see him often. He would play with her in the garden and things like that because her mother, my grandmother, kind of noticed that she was, she would be laughing and talking to something. And one day, my grandmother decided to ask her, like, who are you playing with? Like, who are you laughing with? And she would say, oh, it's my friend. And my grandmother kind of asked her, like, what did they look like, what not? She explained to my grandmother, but I think my grandmother knew straight away. Obviously, it's their folklore, I guess, in the Philippines, that she knew straight away that it was a duende. My mum actually told her that he was asking her to go with him. He would say things like, "Come with me. Like, I want to play. Come with me to my kingdom." And that's what my mum told her mum at the time when she was young. And my grandmother told her very sternly, she said, "You do not go with him. If you go with him, you will not come back. You'll not come back to mummy." So yeah, but she said that she'd continue to see him, play, whatnot. But I think as she got older, she stopped actually visually seeing him. Because I asked her that actually a month or so ago. I said, "Do you actually see him now?" And she said, no, she hasn't seen him visually for a long time.
Wow. Okay. That's crazy. Um, before I go into all the specifics of the Duende thing and the reason I picked up on that, if we were to just backtrack, because I'm sure you are desensitized to this story, and I certainly am, having done this podcast, but I want you to just imagine for a second you're a listener who maybe you're open-minded, but you've never looked into any of this folklore, you don't know anything about the supernatural world, or perhaps you're someone who's completely skeptical, you don't believe any of these beings exist. Can we just
Mm.
strip it back a bit more for those types of people? Can you describe what your mother said it looked like and why she believed, I guess, or did she believe, did she have some reason to think that it was a physical, being, and not just her wild imagination?
I did ask her what he looked like because I started researching duendes, and I learned that there are different colors. So there's different colored ones, and depending on their color is um, that will then tell you their level of malevolence, I guess, because they can be quite evil things. So I did ask her about that. So she said he was brown. He was wearing brown clothes. But I guess because she called him her leprechaun, he was tiny. He was very, very small. Had, just kind of rough clothing, but they had a hat, the little hat that I guess you see. I'm not sure if goblins wear it or, the typical thing you see. Gnomes, maybe, kind of like a gnome.
Yes.
So yeah, if you would envision something like that, that's what he looked like to her. He was very small. Like a gnome.
Although this is audio only, for your benefit, I'm just wondering if I just want to share my screen. I've just literally Google imaged Duende, right? And I know you weren't the one that that saw it, but if we could just potentially get a rough idea of if any of these images sort of match what your mother described. Can you see my screen there?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
So I'll just scroll down, really slowly. The immediate thing that pops out is, some of them are silly cartoons, but they all have hats, like you just mentioned.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it would do. There's a couple on that top line that would, I think, would match what she. Yeah,
I'll
kind of like
hover.
the scruffy clothing, the hat.
So this one here with my cursor is, and
and maybe what's that last one? He's a bit small. Yeah, could be very much like that, I'd say.
Yeah, and look at this one here. This might be boring for people just listening, but it's more so I can we can get a really accurate description. This one on the far right of the second column, it actually looks less sort of mythical and kind of like a mold, like a real life. So I mean, did she? Because some of these images, when you search something like Goblin or Duende, what we're looking at here is some cartoons and
animated.
Yeah, animated. Yeah, exactly. Exaggerated. So, but did she? I'm interested in the language that she used, which was she would say like leprechaun, but also like did you say like a little man or like friend, like a little person?
Yes. Well, she always used the term leprechaun. I guess
Okay.
she used that because of his size, the tiny little leprechauns. And she doesn't, even though she's from the Philippines, she doesn't even know much about duendes, to be honest. But when she initially told me the story about him, always calling him, it's my leprechaun friend, and he does this and this, and that's when I put it together. She never put two and two together. He will play tricks, or he mostly like he'll take something. So through the years, she'll try to find something, it's gone, and then she'll be like, "Oh, it's my leprechaun friend," and so something's gone, and then eventually it'll come back. It'll just be you'll find it somewhere, and he's given it back. So that's the growing up. That's what I understood he was, and that's what he did. She didn't put two and two together, but I did later in life, obviously, when I looked it up. And that is what they say that the duendes do. They will play tricks. They will take things. It's one of the things that they do.
Yeah.
And that's where I guess my story comes into this, because I have actually experienced what I believe is him. I don't know why me though, because my sisters haven't really, my brothers haven't. It's just been me and mum, so that's quite weird.
Okay, so you had an encounter with the same duende, or what happened?
Yeah, I believe it's him. Well, me and mum do think it is him. I've had a few actually little things because as a kid, she'd tell me, and I didn't really believe her to be honest. And I think the first time I really thought, okay, hang on, I was probably around, I want to say 10 or 11, and I had my own room and I kept it pristine. I loved my room, teenage preteen girl. And I had a lighter, which I shouldn't have had, but I did. And it was always in its place. And I was looking for it one day. And I was like, where the heck is it? I searched the room, because obviously I was like, I need to find this lighter. What if someone finds it? And I was like, it was here. I was going crazy. And I just couldn't find it. And so I just made my peace with it. It was gone. And then I'd say a few days later, maybe, I was making my bed. And for some reason, I don't usually, but I lifted up the mattress, I guess, a little higher than I usually do as I was making it. And then there was my lighter right in the middle. I had either a double or a queen bed at the time. So it was quite large. It was under the mattress in the middle, like, of the bed. And I just looked at it. I was like, how the heck did that get there? No one ever, like, I didn't have younger siblings at the time that would tutor around and do things. So yeah, that was the first time I kind of thought, okay, this is weird. I've had little things like that happen through the years, just little things like that. But I guess my main story that I came to you with was a week of very bizarre things that I believe he was responsible for.
Yeah, what happened during that week?
Okay. So this was about 2022, so only a couple of years ago, in this house where I am at the moment. I was casually seeing someone at the time, and so that's when I think it started that week. We were here at home, and the kids were at their dad's for the weekend, so chill. We're watching movies. It was nighttime. I don't remember what time, but it was night, and we were like, oh, we should go get some dinner. Hungry. So we decided we'll go to Macca's, get some dinner, and come back, keep watching the movies. Now I know we had the remote for the TV on the bed, because I had a smart TV, right? And I had to like pause what we were watching. So I know we had the remote on the bed. We paused it and then we headed out, got the food, came back. So when we came back, we sat down, had all our food ready, and we we're like, okay, let's chuck this back on. And we're searching, looking on the bed, like, where's the remote? And I was like, we searched for a bit. I was like, hang on, like, it was here, like, we just left. So we looked everywhere. We searched and we shook out the blankets. We moved the pillows, looked under the bed. I opened up all the drawers, like, and as this was happening, I was like, please don't, because I kind of knew. I was like, please don't say that he's taking it, in my mind, of course. But yeah, we couldn't find it. We eventually gave up, just started eating, sat there for a while talking, eating. And we decided, yeah, we kind of have to find this remote. We got to start searching again. And so we started. And looking all the same places because we'd done it already. But so the guy, oh no, before I got frustrated and started looking again, I decided to tell him. I was like, because I wanted to, my mum said, if you ask him for your things back, like to give them back nicely, he'll give them back. So I remembered this and I said to the guy I was seeing, I was like, okay, I got to do something, but please don't think I'm crazy. And I kind of gave him the quick backstory. I was like, and I just laid it out. I was like, my grandmother practiced black magic. My mother has a leprechaun friend. I think he's taken the remote. I have to ask him nicely for it back. And he just kind of was like, oh, okay. And so I stood there in the room and I said, please give the remote back, please. And we left it for a bit. After that, that's when, we decided, okay, we'll start searching a little bit after that. So we started searching. The guy gets down on the ground and looks under his side of the bed there. And he all of a sudden he pops up and he's got the remote in his hands. And his face was priceless to me. And I looked at him and I was like, it was under there the whole time. And he said, no, it wasn't. Like I looked, I turned my flash on my phone. I looked under here. It was not under here. And I kind of was just like, oh, okay, we got it back. So I didn't put too much into it then, but I do think, okay, maybe because I asked him nicely, he gave it back because he swears it was not under there when he first looked. The second thing that happened that week wasn't to me, but it was to my daughter. So she was 14 at that time, a couple of years ago. She knows about my mum's friend, but she hadn't really experienced it on her own. Like she kind of just heard out stories. Anyway, that one day I heard her in her room and she was going crazy, losing her mind. So I run down, I'm like, what are you doing? And she's adamant she can't find her eyeliner. And it should be here where it always is in her makeup tray, and it's not there. And it's like, okay. She said, I'd looked everywhere. It's gone like really just going crazy. And I said, okay. And I kind of explained to her what happened the other night. I was like, maybe it's Lola's. Oh, that's what they would call her grandmother, Lola. I said, maybe it's Lola's friend. Maybe you should just ask him for it, bring it back. Like, just ask him nicely to bring it back. Which she shrugged off, 14-year-old. She was like, no, I'm not doing that. I think she's had a few not so nice things to say. And I was like, okay. But then she left it for maybe an hour or so. And then she started looking again. And then she finds it right there in her makeup tray where it should have been. So that was the second thing. And the third one that week, it was a very full-on week. The third one was the hairdryer. I had finished a shower and I went to my room to dry my hair. Now, the thing with this hairdryer is the hairdryer is always in my room. It's in the same place, just plugged in, sitting on my drawers. On the rare occasion, my daughter might grab it if she decides she wants to dry her hair, but she'll, bring it back, or it'll be on her bed. So I yell out to her because my hairdryer wasn't there, and I yell out. I said, can you bring the hairdryer back? I need to dry my hair. And she yells back from her room. She was like, I didn't grab it. I don't have it. And I said, you must do because it's not here where it is and it should be. She said, no, didn't grab it. So that went on, and eventually we were like, okay, so it's just gone. Now, this is the third thing this week, and I'm like, right. By then I was like getting very frustrated. So we left it because obviously none of us had it. But a few hours later that night, I heard my daughter she went into the bathroom, which leads to our laundry. So she went through the bathroom and she went into the laundry, I guess, to put some washing on or something. And then all of a sudden I hear bursting down out of the bathroom, down the hallway, running, the loudest and fastest I've ever heard her run in her life. And she runs to my room and she's looking like she's seen a ghost. And I said, what the heck are you doing? What's wrong? And all she manages to get out is, it's on the washing machine. It's on the washing machine. And I said, what? And she said, I went into the laundry and the hairdryer is sitting on the washing machine. Now, I know to most people, this may not seem bizarre or strange at all, but if you knew us, there's no one in this house would put that hairdryer on the washing machine. It is either plugged in next to my bed or on her bed or lying on her floor if she's used it. We do not have any idea how it got in the laundry on top of the washing machine. And another bizarre twist to that was the way it was sitting on the washing machine. It's like someone had what's the word? Wrapped the cord, nicely. Wrapped up the cord, wrapped it around the hairdryer, all nice and tidy and perfect like that, and then put it on the washing machine. A 14-year-old is not going to do that. She's never done that. And to be honest, I never do that either. Like, I never wrap it like that. So that was another strange thing. And I said to her, okay, go grab it. And she was like, I'm not going back in there. Like, she was terrified.
Obviously, children are impressionable. So I imagine if she'd heard a story about, hey, your great grandmother, practiced black magic and had a little goblin leprechaun friend, that would spark, inflame a child's imagination. But
Yes.
are you suggesting she'd sort of believed she'd had some other encounters other than just things go missing for her to believe that this thing existed?
Yes. Yeah. She has definitely had experiences of her own. Definitely paranormal. I don't know if they're ghosts or she's had a fair bit actually. So I think she believes there is paranormal things out there. Doesn't know what it is, but she did know about my mum's friend, and she knew that week there had been already a couple of things happening. So I guess that was on her mind. And then when she put two and two together there, all of a sudden the hairdryer's missing. We both can't find it. And I was like, oh, okay. Then she finds it there. I think that's what really freaked her out. She was like, oh shit, maybe he is real.
So what happened next in this week of series of crazy events?
So after that night, the guy came over again, and I kind of filled him in on what was happening that week. Obviously, he wasn't there for the other two, but he was there for the first one. So I was kind of like telling him what else is happening. He was like, wow, that's like wild. And then after I told him, he kind of laughed and he said something along the lines of, oh, you got to be careful. He might take Pebbles next. Pebbles is our cat. Well, our neighbour's cat, but that's a whole other story. But she's pretty much our cat.
Cats choose their owners as well. So as long as she loves you.
She really did, that cat. But yeah, he said, careful, he might take Pebbles next. Just laughing, making a joke. And as soon as he said that, I don't know, I just got this feeling of dread. I was like, why did you say that? Please take that back. Why did you say that? And he was like, I'm kidding. I'm like, I know, but I just had this really yuck feeling. I don't know if it was that night or the next night. I let Pebbles out as she meows at the door if she wants to go out, which was normal. She'll go out and then she'll come back in at some crazy hour. So I didn't think too much of it. I let her out. It was about 10 o'clock, maybe 11 o'clock at night, and headed off to bed. And I thought, I was expecting the wake-up call at 1 o'clock, would have let her in, but I woke up the next morning, get up, make my coffee. I kind of realised there's no cat at my feet meowing for food. And I was like, that's weird. And I kind of look around. She's not with my girl, not with my boy. I was like, okay, maybe she's gone wandering. But obviously I knew what he'd said, what the week's been like, and I was just trying not to panic. And yeah, a few days go by with no sign of Pebbles, which is weird.
A few days?
Yeah, it was a few days.
And that's not normal. That she doesn't.
That cat is always here. There might have been once in the 10 years I've been in this house where she was gone overnight, but...
How soon after your partner or the guy you were seeing at the time made this little joke, how soon after was this that Pebbles went missing?
I can't remember if it was that night or the next night.
Oh, really?
But it was it was close enough to it.
Okay.
Yeah, it was either that night or the next night. So yeah, a few days go by. The kids, thankfully, were with their dad, so they weren't home. But so I was just here, like, I was thinking, what if she's died? You know, because they wander off when they know they're sick and they're going to pass away. They wander off and they don't come home. And I'm like, oh my God, what if she's died? And I have to explain it to the kids, and they're going to be so distraught. So I was very stressed out for these days where she was gone. I didn't actually even tell anyone. That's how stressed I was. I kind of cocoon when something's really hard for me to cope with. So I didn't actually tell anyone, but I am really close with my younger sister. So when I did speak to her, I think, after a couple of days, I told her that Pebbles hasn't come home, like she was missing. By then I had told my daughter, I think the kids were back, and I told them, look, Pebbles is kind of, I don't know where she's gone. You just got to kind of wait to see if she comes back. But I told my sister, and then also filled her in on the week's happenings, because she knows about my mum's friend as well. And so I told her about that, kind of vented. My sister didn't tell me this, but because I hadn't told mum yet. I told my sister, I hadn't told mum that Pebbles was missing. But my sister called mum and told her Pebbles is missing. Layla's, my daughter, is really upset, like she's crying. And I think my sister must have told her, what if, your friend took him? Like, do you think you can do anything to get her back? So I didn't know that my sister had done this, but so the next thing I know, mum's coming over. I think Pebbles was gone for about a week in total, close to a week in total. But yeah, my mum came over and went down to my daughter's room. I was kind of wondering, like, what is going on here? So she went down to my daughter's room and was talking to her, and told her, oh, that's right. So when my daughter's eyeliner went missing, and I was talking to her, like, just ask him for it back nicely, she had said some terrible things. Things I don't even really want to say, just in case, cursing him out, saying stupid things. I did tell her at the time, I was like, you really shouldn't say that. You should apologize. You need to apologize. But she didn't. She was like, meh, whatever. But anyway, so mum came over, talked to my daughter. She said, okay, you need to apologize. You need to say sorry for the things you were saying. You need to ask him to bring Pebbles back. Like, you need to do those things. So I think Layla must have done that. I wasn't in the room. And then mum told me that she also talked to him and said, I'm sorry, please bring Pebbles back. My granddaughter, you're really upsetting my granddaughter. She's really sad. Please bring her back. And so eventually I find out that had been done. I was like, okay, all right. And then mum left. And then the day after that happened, I woke up, made my coffee, sat down at my desk. I was working from home that day, turned my laptop on, and not long after I sat down, I heard a slight noise at the front door. And it had been a week already. I kind of was making peace with the fact that she may never come back. I didn't want to get my hopes up. I was like, surely not. That's surely not. So I didn't go to the door or anything, just kept working. But then I heard a slight, almost silent, like it was so quiet, a meow. And I ran to that front door so fast, and all I see is Pebbles at the door waiting to get inside.
Oh, I can only imagine the relief.
It was amazing. But yeah, then obviously my daughter was happy, and I was trying to just like end things there. I was like, okay, she's back, she's good. Let's not talk about it, because I do believe that if the more you think about it, the more you talk about it, you give it energy, right? I do believe that. So I kind of,
I've heard this before, and you're now the second person, I think actually third person that I've spoken to that's had said the same thing, that
I believe
when
it
we talk
because
about
of
it.
that.
Yeah.
Because because we were giving him so much energy from all the little things during the week, he had a lot of, I guess, power. I don't know what you'd call it, So so she came back, and I tried to kind of just, it's done. Sort of, let's not think about that anymore. It's just done. But my daughter, she was cuddling her and petting her, and she kind of looked at me. She was like, she was a bit, I don't know what the word is, worried, I guess. She looked at me. She was like, she doesn't seem right. Like, she seems like she's like been traumatized or something. Like someone's done something to her. And I said, no, of course not. It's not. She's all right. She's going to be fine. I don't know what to say. I was trying to, not let my daughter's mind go there and think about it too much. I said, no, she's probably, maybe been stuck somewhere, But yeah, my daughter was like, she's not right. It's like she's terrified. She's been somewhere terrified. But yeah, and like I said, I can't sit here and tell anyone that this is 100%, the Duende is doing. I can't do that. But that week was just too bizarre for me to kind of ignore that maybe it was his doing.
Yeah, and I want to draw the listeners' attention back to the fact, I mean, anyone who's skeptical listening to this, and I think that's natural. Most people would be.
It's a crazy story.
Well, I think it's healthy too. But put it this way, to those who are maybe not unconvinced, because you don't, neither of us need to be here convincing anyone, but who are just writing it off as, okay, you've explained, Lesley, is you've had 4 or 5 things happen in a week where you kind of like misplace something. Those weeks happen. But I guess, because that's what I'm hearing when you're telling the story, that's what I'm hearing in my head, which is fair enough. But almost in a counter response to that, as if there is someone here saying those things right now. What I would draw your attention to is, well, firstly, you were very hesitant in both your last story with the car crash and with this story. You're very hesitant to sort of label or speculate. So that's clear. And also, it's like the first thing with the remote. What struck me is, that's odd. That's really odd. We can all sort of relate to, those crazy little moments where it doesn't sound like much of a story to anyone else, but we couldn't for the life of us find it. We checked under the bed. It definitely wasn't there. And then it was just there. That would be like, if I haven't had anything like that happen, and as trivial as that is in comparison to this wider story, if that happened to me, that would get me questioning, like, what was that placed there? But then the other items, and then of course the hairdryer, and the fact that that's a much larger item that's placed in a very specific position on the washing machine with its wrapped up coil, that you're starting to now see a pattern. How many coincidences in a row do you have to have before you start questioning, okay, is there something else influencing this? And then on top of all that, this is happening in the context of your mother having explicitly admitted to having a Duende Goblin Leprechaun friend growing up, and which she sort of continued to interact with sort of later on in life. And that's crazy.
She says that he followed her here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's that sort of it leads into my next question, because I we talked about this before we started recording, but you're familiar with the fact that I interviewed a lady from the UK who saw a goblin.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So I don't know if you listened to the episode or at least saw some clips. Did you see her original video, or did you watch my interview with her at all?
I think I did. I watch her original. I think I did watch her originals on TikTok, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
I think I did watch her original video.
The reason I ask is there's a lot of parallels, but this is not how. It's not like because there's been another lady that I've interviewed, and there's another one coming up, who I found in the comments section of Jordan's video about the goblin, because that was a gold mine of everyone, all these different people from all walks of life saying, oh, I've seen something similar, or I haven't seen that, but hey, I've seen fairies, I've seen aliens, so I'm like, as a new supernatural podcast host, I'm like, I've got to message all these people. Now, you weren't one of those people, though. I think just because we're both in New Zealand, you sort of I came up on your For You page, and you happen to have this story about, and you give it the name Duende. And Jordan herself said that when she did her research, and particularly when she made that TikTok video about her experience with what she called a goblin, that it became very clear to her that these beings or similar beings were all over the world, and they fell under different names. And Duende was one that cropped up a lot. And just as you were telling that story, I was doing a little bit of Googling, and I see that, and I remember Jordan saying, that in Mexican folklore, they call it Duende. So when you said Philippines, I was like, hang on, that's quite different. But then you've got, I don't know the history, but there's this like Spanish colonialism and stuff, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and hence a lot of Filipino names are sort of Spanish names.
Yeah,
so,
that's right.
In Jordan's story, and I'm getting to a point here. Sorry if I'm rambling, but in Jordan's story, right, that was a common theme as well, is that it followed her upon her first encounter, which was at this sort of a weekend away, this spa, converted spa place. It came back to her home. Now, she had never encountered anything supernatural, but the place that she and a few friends of hers were staying at, where she encountered this goblin, was at an old mill, a renovated mill that had become a spa, and the town was called Linthwaite. It's this little town in West Yorkshire, and Linthwaite is her maiden name. She said that apparently it's a really, really uncommon name, and she didn't know too much about her family history. So she sort of went on this spa weekend away with her friends, thinking that would be kind of cool, sort of 2-in-1, getting to see a bit of a family history. And she thinks, although she doesn't know for sure, she intuitively feels that she hadn't experienced anything supernatural at all before this. And it happened to be that she saw this thing at a place, an old mill, in a town that was most likely named after one of her distant relatives. So there was this connection. And I'm wondering if what you've just mentioned with your mother and this Duende, firstly, I'm trying to wrap my head around, why is it in Mexico, it said Spanish, Portuguese, and Filipino folklore. Well, whether it's Spain or Mexico or Portugal or Philippines, these are geographically completely different places, right? And yet the common thread is the colonial times. So, and then you're saying now, so I'm wondering if, these sort of beings were brought over to the Philippines, and and you're saying that that your mother believes it came over to New Zealand with her from the Philippines.
Yeah, because he found her there, and always stayed with her, always played with her, and she swears he followed her here, and she's continued to have the experiences here. He just takes things and then gives them back. That's the most of what he's done, I think. Yeah, but she swears he's followed her here, but I don't know why I experience these things, but none of my I have 4 other siblings, and they don't have not even one story that they could say is him or it's me.
But neither did any of them experience what you experienced during the car crash either. So perhaps, and this is now in the territory of speculation, but perhaps you're, for whatever reason, a bit more open to this realm, like your mother is.
Yeah, I think I am very open to the paranormal, I guess. As skeptical as I am, I'm very open to it. I guess maybe I give things more thought, more energy, maybe, than my siblings do. And maybe that's why I experience the things, possibly.
Yeah. I find it so fascinating, this sort of, it's this supernatural experience, this phenomenon that you sort of think of when you think of ghosts and all of that stuff. It's like an other. It's like, they're not limited to this physical realm or whatever. But so why then are there all these stories of these beings often staying in bloodlines? Like, obviously, your grandmother practiced black magic. Your mother had this encounter with this Duende, and now it came into your life as well. It is a similar theory to what Jordan, my other guest, had as well, and it's just fascinating. You've seen Harry Potter, I take it, right?
Oh, no.
Oh, you haven't?
I've not watched. No.
Oh, okay. Well, that threw me off.
I always feel like I have to apologize when someone asks me that. I'm like, no.
No. That's completely fine. I just assume
everyone loves it. It's never interested me. I don't know.
Oh, fair enough. The only reason I ask is because obviously most people have seen it. And I guess most people listening would be familiar with Harry Potter has this sort of house elf called Dobby.
Oh yes, I know Dobby. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you know the characters at least. And there's a few other things like in this whole paranormal supernatural world, the phenomenon, I like to call it, which just encompasses everything: aliens, UFOs, Bigfoot, Duende, ghosts. That J.K. Rowling, who wrote these books. Now it's no secret that obviously she's borrowed a lot of these characters and the themes from folklore and from religion. That's not some amazing revelation. But what kind of interests me, and it's the same with like aliens and flying saucers in Hollywood films, is that you sort of assume that she's, for example, J.K. Rowling has borrowed from folklore, and she's obviously done her research and into these stories and these characteristics, and you sort of think, oh yeah, but they're just bullshit stories. They're just old school stories, and they get passed down in Chinese whispers, and it becomes this thing, right? And that's what folklore is. And then you start speaking to people like yourself, like Jordan, and I've spoken to a couple of other people as well, who have encountered what is known as a dog man, or, for lack of a better term, a werewolf. And one of the guests that I spoke to in the UK, incredibly normal, down to earth woman, and we were looking at images, trying to sort of look up a werewolf to get an idea of a description of what she saw. And there's a werewolf in Harry Potter, Sirius Black, and she said, yeah, I mean, when he transforms into a werewolf, that's sort of what I saw. And so Dobby the house elf, the reason I bring that up, I'm not an avid super fan of Harry Potter, so I don't know exactly, but I'm pretty sure there are rules. Like he's a house elf, like he's stuck to that family, and it's just interesting that it sort of
I've never actually
seems.
thought about that, like being sticking with the bloodline.
Do you feel that that's kind of like, what has happened is that he's now in your life because of your mother, and that there's like a family tie?
Yeah. Now that you've brought that up, I think that is possibly what's happening. Maybe because I do. That's what I wonder, why me though, and not any of my other siblings. And so maybe, he was obviously obsessed with my mum, followed her here, wanted to be her friend, and I guess somewhere down the line he managed to break through, I guess, with me, and maybe I give him the energy he needs to things. So he's attaching to me, I guess, in a way too. So that when mum's gone, then maybe he's going to be attached to me. I mean, we're just speculating, but I think maybe that's what's going to be happening.
Yeah. Well, if you're to believe all these other people's experiences, which have no reason not to, for the most part, there are common threads throughout all these things, and a common thread with what you've just mentioned is that there are people who see things, with other family members around them or friends or whatever, who don't see them. They're there at the same time. They hear something, they see something, and it almost sounds like, when I say it out loud, it almost points to this idea that they might be psychotic. It's often corroborated, and there's whole other backstories to back it up. But I think it just is as simple as some people, for whatever reason, are slightly more in tune with that other realm, whatever that is, and maybe you happen to be one of those people, and it's sort of passed down from your grandmother, I suppose.
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm definitely, out of my siblings, I would say that I am the most connected, I guess, to the other realm, spiritual realm, whatever that is, just through the number of experiences I've had in my life, where they have barely any. So there is something definitely different, I guess, with me. And I guess with things that I have, like I only learnt in the last 5 years that something I have, it wasn't normal. I found out through something, if I could quickly tell that.
Of course. Yeah.
So I was at work and I had a good friend, and we were just chatting. I can't remember what we were chatting about, but something was said, and I said something about hearing something in your head, or hearing voices in your head. And I said to him, "What, you don't have that?" And he looked at me and was like, "What?" And I said, "Like, you don't ever hear sound, voices, like talking, anything? You've nothing?" He was like, "No." I was like, "Ever?" And he was like, "No." He kind of looked at me like, "Who am I dealing with?" I was like, "Oh, okay." And then I went home after that, and I asked my partner at the time, I was like, "Do you ever hear stuff sometimes? Like, you can hear anything like that's not really there?" And he was like, no. Oh, no, we were actually having a conversation about his cousin. And she'd been diagnosed with something. I can't remember what it was. And he said, oh, yeah, she was hearing voices, like conversations and stuff. And I said to him, oh, well, I mean, that's pretty normal. Like, why would they think, she's thinking because of that? He was like, he just looked at me. I was like, you don't have that? And he was like, no. And I was like, oh. So that's when I kind of realized that something that I've had for most of my life is not as normal as I thought it was. Especially if I'm falling asleep, sometimes it's like I can hear conversations, but I can't hear words. I can just hear maybe people talking, but it's so quiet and distant. It sounds distant. And it, like, sometimes if I'm falling asleep and I'm like almost asleep, it'll kind of be like loud. That wakes me up, like snaps me out of falling asleep. And then I wake up and I'm like, oh, I have some weird, like, I don't even know what you call it. I hear stuff. But none of my siblings have that. And I thought everyone did until in the last 5 years.
I was going to make a joke. It's not very funny, but the elephant in the room being, well, are you perhaps psychotic? You were talking, because that's what people are thinking, right? But in all seriousness, you're obviously very coherent and down to earth. So are you suggesting this is not like back and forth mad conversations with a thing in your mind that's sort of, like we would think about with severe mental illness?
Yeah, no, because I was a bit concerned when I actually realized it wasn't, not everyone had it. And it's not all the time. It's kind of just random. It's very random. I don't notice it as much as I'm getting older.
Can you give some other examples? You mentioned falling asleep with the whispering and, all that, but day to day, what was some other examples?
I've noticed it's when I almost tune out. That's how I'd put it. Like, I've had instances where I'm washing dishes and it's so tedious, and I almost tune out when I'm washing dishes. You kind of just get in a rhythm, and then your mind starts going somewhere else. I've noticed in those kind of moments, I guess it's so, I don't know how to explain it. Like, hear stuff, but it's like a distant, I can hear distant talking or chattering. And then I kind of snap back into it. I'm like, not that I was gone or anything. I just kind of realized that I've tuned out, and I cannot explain it. I do very well. I don't know. But it is most of the time it's when I'm falling asleep. Like, I cannot fall asleep in silence. I always have to have some sound. Ever since I was young, because it's too loud without.
Really?
I need a sound. It's uncomfortable for me. Even if it's silent, and I'm not hearing anything. It makes me feel uncomfortable. Like, I'm open to hearing things, maybe.
Yes.
So I need the sound to distract my mind enough so that I can fall asleep. As weird as that may sound to people.
No, I understand that. And I guess everyone, at least at some stage in their life, can relate to a time where the silence was deafening. Like, I don't know, you're out camping and it's whatever. You're in the country.
Hurts.
Yeah. So I think people can kind of understand that. But that's like, for most people, that's a very specific, like, oh, it was like dead quiet, it was eerie. But you're saying that, any sort of silence is enough for you to sort of trigger, like, am I susceptible to slipping into some sort of realm? Is that kind of what you're
Yeah,
sort of
that's how
thinking?
I would explain it. But it's when I'm in between, you're falling asleep. That's when I'm not asleep yet. But
Yeah,
that's when it usually I will get something, or hear something, and then
it's
that wakes me up fully.
yeah. It's really interesting that you describe that because I can actually relate because I have had that myself. I used to get that exactly how you've described when I was a kid, and it probably stopped when I was by 7 or 8. And I'll want to preface this by saying I can't speak on your behalf because you can believe interpret it as you see fit, of course. But for me personally, look, I'm completely open to the fact that our subconscious is super powerful. The fact that we
Mm.
dream in the first place is crazy, but because
It is.
everyone dreams, can you imagine if no one dreamed and then one night someone had a dream for the first time and then they went to explain it? That would be the most supernatural thing, right? But
Yeah.
we just accept that we dream. So, this idea of like hearing voices or whatever, I'm completely open to it just being potentially a byproduct of your mind, winding down or whatever.
Mm.
With that said, I know what you mean by the feeling of the silence being like you're susceptible to like something could you want to distract yourself from it because when I was a kid, it's so funny because everything you described is exactly how I had it. I would hear these whispers. It would often take place when I was homesick with the flu or something like that, and I was having a nap in the middle of the day because maybe that's an unusual time for your body to be sleeping, so your mind's over reactive and you're also sick. But I would drift off and I wouldn't be conscious of it until I was, and I would then jolt awake, like you said. I would hear these whispers, and just like how you described, they were like sometimes like way in the distance. It was like someone you could just just in the background, not enough to wake you, or
Mm.
not enough to pay attention. And then if I sort of noticed it and became a little bit lucid to it, then it would like sort of amplify and amplify, and it was still whispers the whole time. But then it was to the point where it was just you may as well have been at a soccer game with 100,000
Mm.
people. It was that loud, but it was still
Wow.
whispers. And there was an energetic feeling to it. It's like you sort of felt it wasn't literally like, oh, my ears heard, you know what I mean? It's in your
Mm.
mind. Yeah, but I guess like a lot of these things, similar perhaps to your mother, at a certain age, stopping physically seeing her duende friend, that this is what we hear, isn't it? That kids are like more susceptible to these things, more open to these things, and as they grow up and are more sort of conditioned and influenced by, just normal life, that
Mm.
they sort of lose that ability. So that's clearly what happened with me with the voices thing. But that's something that's stayed with you clearly.
Here and there. It's definitely not as bad as it used to be. Yeah.
Mm, mm, mm.
Yeah, it's quite interesting.
It is. And have you? I appreciate your time. So I won't keep you and just keep asking questions. But I could pick your brain all night because I love this stuff. But
Mm.
just briefly, you mentioned that you want to distract yourself from the sound. The sound is like deafening, or because you said that it feels like the silence is like, I forget how you put it, but I know what you mean. It's like you're
Uncomfortable.
uncomfortable. That's what you put
Mm.
it. So Is there an event or an experience that has led you to feel, to associate that experience with feeling uncomfortable? Like, has something ever happened in those states where you have, I don't know, something happened?
Mm, not that I can think of, but I have had quite a scary experience during sleep. But
Hmm.
that, yeah, I couldn't put that down to being the reason.
Like sleep paralysis, or
I guess you could call it that, but it's not the typical experience that you hear when people talk about sleep paralysis. It was almost like I was awake, but I was still asleep, like I was stuck somewhere in between. Like
mm,
I was quite aware and awake, and I knew that my brain or my mind maybe was still not, it hadn't caught up.
yep,
That was very scary. Yeah.
and it was
Um,
different from a lucid dream.
yeah, no, I wasn't, wasn't a dream or anything. I kind of, essentially, I woke up, but all I couldn't open my eyes or anything. I could hear what would you, it's almost like shattering glass or like tinkling. It was very loud though, like tinkling glassy sound. And I know my eyes were closed, but what I would see it, I guess, in my mind's eye, I think is what they call it. What I could see was almost like almost like snow, maybe. It was white, it
Mm.
was bright, like ice shards, kind of like that. And like all I could hear was this, it was so loud, like this tinkling glass sound. And I was awake and hearing this and seeing this, and I was thinking to myself, what is this? Like, where am I? Like, what is happening? Because I was awake, but I was like, am I still asleep? Like, I was quite scared. That lasted for about maybe 30 seconds. It felt longer, but I guess just because I was so scared, and eventually I must have woken up.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
Toppling fully. Yeah, I was stuck there. I was very aware of it.
Well, you say that it's you know, it's different to what your normal story of sleep paralysis is, or normal description. I again, not. It sounds like I'm trying to one up you. I haven't seen a duende, so or guardian angels. So you've got that
Yeah.
on me, Lesley. But I exactly again what you've described. I've had that. I've had that multiple times, and I call it sleep paralysis because, yes, sometimes it literally is like my mind has woken up before my body and I can't move my body, but
Mm,
there's nothing sort of supernatural to it. It's like I know I'm back in my room, but I just can't move.
mm,
That's the one end of the spectrum where it's, and that's perhaps what, when you think of what people describe as sleep paralysis, what comes to mind. But what you've just described, I would get that all the time, particularly in my teenage years. I don't get it anymore. The last time I had sleep paralysis was probably 2 years ago, and that was like, quite a few years in between the last occasion. But when I was a
mm.
teenager, and I guess early 20s, but yeah, mostly when I was a teenager, I would get this quite frequently. And it would be, yeah, if you look up sort of sleep paralysis stories, there's some really wacky, not wacky, but just really bizarre,
Terrifying ones. Yeah.
terrifying, yes, terrifying supernatural elements to it. And people describe the same thing that I can relate to. I don't know if you can relate to it as well with your experience, is that it felt like, yeah, firstly, it wasn't a lucid dream. I've only actually ever lucid dreamt once in my entire life. or I've had it, and as soon as I realize I'm dreaming, I wake up. So this was like full blown, but it felt as real, if not more real, than real waking life when I actually properly woke up. Like when I properly woke up, I knew that I had woken back up in my physical body, and things felt familiar because I'm familiar with my physical realm, life in this physical realm. That's familiar, but it was a very specific feeling, very different from dreaming. I mean, completely lucid. Sometimes I literally am in my bedroom, and it is just that, like I'm kind of not out of body, but it's like I'm, I can perceive everything, even though my body is lying on the bed and asleep. And other times it's been sort of a more confusing environment where it's not where I'm sleeping, and but it's not a dream. It's not a dream. It's absolutely, I think most people really who've ever had sleep paralysis will tell you it's terrifying. That's the common thread, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm terrified of it.
Yeah.
I never want to experience it.
Well, when I would when I would get sleep paralysis, there would be this feeling of, oh God, okay, not again. And the funny thing is, the more you fight it, the more you try and struggle to wake up. It's like quicksand. The tighter your muscles become, and you just exhaust yourself. You're not going to get out of it. So you have to just try and relax. But in the meantime, if the way out of it is just relaxing and just letting go in order to wake up, that's pretty hard to do if you can also sense something, like a presence, or hear something, because that's terrifying. So how can you relax? And that's kind of also what I thought about when you said, not to, the more you feed the duende, give it attention, the more these incidents happen. And this is what Jordan said as well, and this is what many other people who've encountered these beings have said. But it just occurred to me, like, that's like saying, oh, you've just like stumbled upon a giant, grizzly bear in the woods, and just chill. Yes, mother and her cubs there, just chill. Like, how do you, how do you, I've heard that a lot, that you're not supposed to pay these things attention. Did you find that difficult to kind of ignore, or was it always on your mind?
I'm getting better at not giving too much thought and energy into things. I'm definitely getting better in my older age. I guess the more we learn, the more stories we hear, we almost become, I don't know, we're less scared of things, right? Yeah. So I think that if you're less fearful of it, that is easier to relax or stay calmer when things are happening. So like little things might happen at home. Like my daughter might say, oh, what was that? Or did you hear that? Or, something like that. And before I'd be like, high alert straight away, like what? And then try and, sort of, now I'm kind of just like, oh, it's probably this. Just ignore it. Don't give it the energy. I'm trying to get my kids into that kind of zone too, where they aren't going to be so fearful of things, to be able to give it energy to wreak havoc.
I suppose, fortunately, at least in your experience with this duende, and this is, by the way, again, what is a common characteristic of these goblins or duendes or fairies, even in Celtic folklore, is that they're not necessarily, they don't necessarily have your best intentions at heart, but they're not evil, they're not malevolent, they're tricksters. And so I guess, as terrifying I don't want one of these things in my life. But from what I understand, it's at worst just a bit creepy and like a bit annoying, right? Would that be?
Yeah, when they take our cat, it's a bit.
Well, yes. Okay. Yeah. No, that's a good point.
Yeah,
And so,
but like we said, it could have been a week of just major coincidences, weird things. Yeah, or not.
yeah, but this is what I encourage people to do: is say, okay, if you crazy coincidences happen, there's 7 billion people on Earth, so every day there's 7 people experiencing a 1 in a billion chance occurrence, right? And then there's multiple 1 in a billion chances of different things happening. So crazy coincidences are happening all around the world all the time. I get that. But then, okay, what are the chances of then getting another crazy coincidence, and then another one, and then another one, and then your partner making a joke about the cat, and then that night or the next day, the cat going missing for the first time in its life for an entire week. And then again, this is all under the umbrella of the fact that your mother claims to have not just seen but interacted her entire life with this creature. I mean, at a certain point,
Yeah.
do you just,
The
it's
math,
like
the math
yeah,
is the.
the math ain't math, and yeah. Just lastly on that, what age did she say that she stopped seeing him and it just became more of this like in the background trickery?
I don't know if she gave me a specific age. I kind of just asked her, because I asked for a few details to put a story together really for this a few weeks ago. And I said, because I've never really asked her that, I said, do you still see him? And she said, no, I can't see him anymore. So she didn't really give me an age, but she definitely could see him physically, well, if you'd call it physically, as a kid, as a child, yeah.
Fascinating. Well, Lesley, thank you so much. This has been really, really interesting. Both of those stories. Thank you for sharing them. Particularly the first.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah. No, it's my pleasure, and particularly the first story. As a lot of these stories are, very personal, and there's some sort of trauma attached. So, thank you for your vulnerability and sharing that. No, but this has been great. Hope you've enjoyed it as well. It didn't bring up too much.
Yeah, I do enjoy telling it. It's a bit, you get a bit nervous, but no, yeah, I've enjoyed it. So thank you for letting me share them.
It was fantastic. My pleasure. Cool. Well, thank you so much for your time, Lesley, and we'll speak again soon.
Okay.